Welcome back, Sportlighters. In this episode, we talk more with the elusive Arian Foster about how to level the playing field on and off the turf, as well as philosophize about racism, love, power, and astrophysics. And now, Sportlight Sport Report. This is Sport Knowledge.
We have more than enough money to fund public education at a high level. We have more than enough money. That is a lot of political talking points that they posit. It's not the reality we live in, because I mean, think about it. If we were to get bombed by X country tomorrow, would anybody ask, where are we going to get the money to go to war? No, nobody would ask that. They would find the money. And the reason why they would find the money is because they could print it, period. And so, but when it comes to actually taking care of your citizens, we always come up short. Them pockets is falling out. Why is that? It's because we don't care about people. We don't. We like to say it. It's a slogan, but we don't do it.
When you say we, what are you talking about? The politicians? You talking about because I do. I care about education. I care about, so how do we, I want to find a solution.
I'm talking about 50% of America don't. 50% of politicians don't. I would say 70% of politicians don't. The solution is elect ethical people. That's the solution. Elect ethical people.
I would love to. When was the last time you were excited to vote for somebody?
Not in the presidential election, ever. No. But I feel like we have some progressive candidates that are really fighting for people. And they get demonized under the guise of they're trying to take this, they're trying to take your freedom. This is why politics is interwoven with everything. It's because it's fear mongering. They think that if you don't abide by this fabricated commandments of our history's then you're somehow anti who we are. And I mean, that's rooted in a lot too. There's a lot of variables to unpack as well, but the majority of people have an idea of how this country should go forward because of where it was. And where it was founded upon racist and capitalistic ideologies. Undeniable. And if we skew from that, then we're somehow anti-American. And that's the issue.
I guess I wish we'd pay more attention to like actual solutions instead. I just feel like everybody's always, I'm talking about politicians now, obviously, but right. They're just always talking at each other. Nobody, like you said, nobody's listening.
Well,
it's frustrating.
You have bureaucracies. You literally have lobbyists. You literally have people who are paying politicians to get legislation passed, paying people. Like, there isn't a conscious human being that has read any amount of data on climate change that says man isn't aiding the excess heat in the world. There isn't anybody. But what happens is they like to skew it. They like to find the one or two peppered in scientists that say, well, it might not be as bad as they say. It's warming, but it might not be as bad as they say, right? And that's enough to lobby against real change in climate policy. It's the same thing with everything. Schools, it's the same thing with guns. It's the same thing with all of that stuff. It's the exact same thing. This is why, I went, and this is turned into a political conversation, but I went from you said what? Yeah, we started talking about sports. But it's so interwoven, and that's what's so amazing to me. It's all interconnected, and so when I left the NFL, I really dove into politics. Well, I mean, I was always aware.
You should run.
No. No, but when I dove into politics, It really started at college is what it started. But when I really dove into it, what I realized was you can't understand one thing unless you understand another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing. And then you realize this is all connected in a long story of who we are as Americans. And what's happening now is that the the historical narrative is being changed to fit agendas. And the funny thing is, they'll hear me say that, people on the right, and they'll say that's what y'all are doing. And that's the scary part, to bring a full circle of what we started this conversation with, is that's the scary part, is when anybody can say they're doing it wrong, and I have evidence on my side. That's where you get into the, okay, where do we go from here? How can we then move forward?
So yeah, and we call it in some of the stuff that I kind of do, we call it the scientization. You weaponize science to do what you want to. So I think I use this example as a way of showing how evidence those, and we can hit our natural physical science discussion. I know physiologists, biomechanists that look at research on, reps and sets and working out, right? And I never wanted to do that stuff, but I was a strength coach, so it was important to know. And these guys study the research on, glute activity, glute muscle activity. So what that means is butt muscle activity, right? They want to know how to get bigger, tighter, fuller, rounder, baby got back butts. And this is what they do their research on. And so next thing you know, they're presenting at conferences, they're writing in journals, they're talking about it. They got, followers on all the social media talking about glute training, right? And you see it in the media, or you see it in the advertisements that you get in the mail. And it's just sitting there, right? This is all science. It's valid research, okay?
Yeah.
What the hell for, though?
Yeah.
What are we doing this for? This is not necessarily
Get a nice, firm, round butt.
Look, I get it.
Come on.
I like it. I'm good. Get you some squats.
He said, I like it.
I like it. I'm not trying to hate on the bus, but what are we doing? Like, we're out of our minds. And that's scientization. We're weaponizing the science. And you asked me about, so like I looked up the modern monetary theory. You look at economics, and I agree with you that democracy, I just recently read a thing or was reminded, democracy does not work when the people are not educated. And
Socrates.
Yeah.
Socrates. He did not like democracy for that exact reason. He said, if you have, I'm sorry to cut you off, the wine is flowing, but Socrates said, if you have a public that is uneducated and they are responsible for electing officials, what does that leave you? You're a product of your environment. This is what you curated. And so that's exactly what we're seeing. And this is why when I know I'm going to lose some of your listeners, but when Donald Trump was elected, I was like, yo, this is exactly what America deserved. Because if you look at what we value as a society, we value money, and he's a alleged billionaire. We value fame. He's a TV star, right? And we value bravado. These are all the things as Americans that we value. This is encompassing of who and what we are as Americans. I'm like, this is what you wanted.
Why is reality TV so popular?
100%. Kim Kardashian is one of the most famous human beings on earth, and all she does is exist, and they film it. And it's not to detract from her as a human being. Like, I think she's done some good things in business, but what I'm saying is, what we value. Why do we not value? Like I'm a huge fan of Einstein. Like, I'm a huge fan of Einstein. Like, I love him. I've studied him. I love Einstein. Why aren't our heroes modern day the scientists? Why aren't our heroes modern day artists? Right? Like, why do we? It's the reason why. Like, if I don't know if you heard, there's an article about Spotify. Spotify was talking about not banning. I don't want to misrepresent them, but they're talking about disincentivizing artists that don't put out projects within 4 years. So you have to put out one at least 4 years, or I think they take away your listeners or whatever the case may be. You have to resubmit. And what you're then doing is you're saying, as an artist, you're not generating enough for us, or to the capacity that we deem necessary. So you have to create underneath our umbrella. That is the opposite of what art should be. I should be able to create as an artist whenever and however I see fit, and the people that give to my or that feed from my art can appreciate that. But you're curating it and you're manipulating it. And that's what money does to arts, and it's what money does to science. And those are the two things. If you look at any culture in history, any culture, Mayans, Egyptians, any culture in Africa, any of them, what are the two things that we take from cultures after they're done? We take their arts and we take their sciences and we study those. That's it. So those are the two most important things. And we devalue them the most in our society because of profit. It's insane.
I'm waiting for G to bring this back to sports somehow.
Well,
No.
I mean, it's already ready. I mean, I just appreciate Kim Kardashian
I'm
and her
just kidding.
support of NFL running backs.
It's funny we were talking about butts and now we're back to Kardashian. I mean, I'm sensing a theme with you boys.
I mean, that is not my style.
Hey,
The fabrication of the glutes is not my thing.
Yeah, why work out, right? Shove something in there.
There's a famous line in rap that says if the thighs don't match, it ain't legit.
Well, I'm nerding out because I was like, right there. I watched the Einstein special. I think it was on PBS. It was actually
Nova.
It was
Yeah.
good.
It was terrific
Love
too.
it, bro.
But yeah, I mean, people are somewhat aware of that. We have a lot of celebrities or a lot of lack of substance celebrities in the spotlight, and we need to have, and right, and that's why we got you in the spotlight here, is to shine a light on a public intellectual that has used the leverage of sport, and then beyond that has grown way beyond sport, and is an artist in that regard. And I wanted to ask you too, are you aware of, have you heard of Cornel West and Trisha Rose's podcast, The Tightrope?
Bro, okay. I mean, yes, to answer your question, Cornel West is my favorite human being that is walking this planet. I think he is the most brilliant mind on this planet. Unbelievable mind. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just right with your interest in sports and being a public intellectual and music and art and hip hop. I mean, and that's what Trisha Rose specializes in. That we got to get you. I mean, I'm talking like I'm going to get you on that show. Like I can do anything.
Hey, get me on, brother.
But Cornell and other philosophers like that too. And mine that I was introduced to in grad school too was Maxine Green, a philosopher of education too. That was like, when you read her work, she's an existentialist, tremendous, because the way that you can weave in art and scholarship and observation with everyday life speaks to people. And that's what the arts do. And the arts we don't want the arts, because the arts makes you critical. The arts makes you think. The arts makes you wonder.
That was an epiphany that I had. Probably, it wasn't too long ago. It was like maybe 2-3 years ago, that how important art is to a culture. I was like, a lot of them are kooks. Like they just kind of trying to get the whatever. It didn't dawn on me until I really started pondering my own relationships. And so, to go off on a tangent, but it's right on point with what you're talking about, is I started thinking about why am I in a relationship? Why am I in a monogamous relationship? I'm in a monogamous relationship because that's what has been marketed to me since I was a child. Is you grow up and you marry somebody, you fall in love, and yada yada yada, right? And on a deeper level, how we think about love. Think about it. I love you, bro. I love you. We share the time and period. I love you. I don't love you like I love my mother. I don't love my mother like I love my dog. I don't love my dog like I love my best friend. I don't love my best friend like I love one of my lovers, right? Why do we have one word for all these different feelings and emotions? It makes no sense. What we've done, think about Romeo and Juliet, Beauty and the Beast, all these artistic expressions of love stories. They have been marketed to us, and they are personified in how we love. Not only that, they infiltrate, and that's a tough adjective to use, but they infiltrate our expectations of love. If you are in a relationship and you have an expectation of how you love or how you want to be loved, you are a victim of the marketing of love. 100%. And so I had to really recalibrate. Okay, like, why do I love? Why do I love this person? And why do I feel like there's this sense of ownership? Like I own this person. Who you talking to? Where you going? Who you with? Tell me tell me what's going on. I don't, that's none of my business, bro. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But what I'm saying is the arts have directly influenced something as integral and as personal as love because of how we're marketing to it. Not only that, if you look at things like, and it's changing now dramatically, but if you look at things like The Birth of a Nation, it's an old film back in the, what was it, 1900s, early 1900s. It was propaganda about how black folks are violent, they're murderous, they're savages, right? Blackface. It's why blackface is so disrespectful now. It's because it was part of minstrel shows and how black people were just goofuses. They were just goofy. They weren't used to of anything else other than the comic relief. Even to this day, you'll have a lot of like rom-coms, or you'll have a lot of these movies where there's the black girlfriend's like, girl, you better get rid of that man, right? It comes from the same lineage from that. And I say all that to say art has and does directly affect the zeitgeist of who we are as a society. And that's why it dawned on me how important art is and why it's so important that we let it be free and we try to unshackle it from monetization, because it's killing it. It's killing in it, and it's curated in a way that is detrimental to the evolution of who we are as a species.
We talked about it on with hip hop with Snoop, is that when the powers that be start to take over and start to tell you how to do your art or how to do your songs, or you need to do more of these types of things, because this is going to sell and this is going to be a success and we can market it this way. You lose your authenticity and you lose your ability to speak truth to power and do your thing and explore that creativity. Is anybody seeking you out? How are you? I'm wondering if you're an advisor.
Hope not.
No, I mean, like in terms of
Hope not, bro.
Of being that, there's another philosopher, Foucault, that talks about, and others before him talked about, I think it's pronounced parrhesia. The truth telling, right? You are quite frank. I think you speak what is on your mind. You're not loose lips. You're not just spouting off whatever. I think that's probably what got you into trouble in times in college, and myself included, right? You just say the first thing that pops in there and you're like, but is anybody seeking you out, or how do you advise is it former athletes, colleagues, friends, people that are like, man, you've been able to hold your stuff together. You've been doing a great job and doing all these things. How are you able to do that sort of thing? What kind of, I mean, do athletes seek you out at all for that?
Not really, man. I think I was kind of marketed as this like a weirdo, right? Like this dude's weird. Like I had plenty of people coming to me, it's like, damn, I thought you was like a weirdo, bro. Like you kind of deep, right? And I mean that's subjective, right? That's what they feel. But I think in general, academia or intelligentsia, they look at me like a former athlete, right? And former athletes look at me like, oh, you trying to be, right? And so I'm caught in this purgatory of labels. And I think that's only gonna come. I think if I like say I had people respect pedigree more than they do anything else. And so like say I went back to school and got a PhD in whatever, then I would then be okay, maybe he knows what he's talking about. And I think it's a bit elitist, but I understand it, right? Because if you don't have a bearing on or like or yeah, if you don't have a bearing on understanding if somebody is speaking to you from a place of knowledge and understanding, whether than somebody's just talking, If you don't have that filter, then it all sounds the same to you. And I think I exist in that space to a lot of people. And it's not, I'm just not begrudgingly. I'm just not like I'm like bitter or anything like that. It's just I feel like I've been like that. Like when I was in the locker rooms, I'm like, yo, there's a deeper issue that none of us are tapping in. And they're like, dog, like I just want to play ball, right? And it's not to speak to them. That's just what they focus was on. And it's just I feel like that in society, honestly. So I'm speaking to a deeper issue, and they're like, I just want to pay my bills, or I just want to go to the game, or you know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same thing, but they'll never view me as, maybe when I'm dead, but they'll never view me as anybody of any kind of like intellectual relevancy, unless I have some kind of pedigree other than what I did for a living.
Yeah, you're trying to be the bourgeoisie. The difference is, right, is that cultural capital or that family wealth. You know,
Careful with that lingo, brother.
But I mean, right, the example in football, right, that people will share all the time is Myron Rolle, right? Myron Rolle now, because he's a doctor, you know, he's got that, right? But he made his way up, you know, the ranks. But if you don't have that, then you might feel like an imposter, you know, and it's hard to find out and carve out your name and be who you are and authentic to what you want to be, and not be caught between those different, I'll call them tropes, you know, of
1,000%. But I think the mold is changing, where it is of like there isn't a book and a course that you can give as your curriculum that I can get online, right? And so what I've done is I've realized that the things that I love to study, like there is a process that you have to go through. And so I've put myself through that process rather than going through it formally in college. That will never be respected as having that pedigree of I did this. And so I've read the people that you talk about in this. I've read Cornel West. I've read Socrates. I've read these people, and I understand what they're saying, and I understand the points that they got to, right? But that will never be respected as a university. I mean, if you want to get deeper into it, a traditionally white university degree that says I know what I'm talking about. And until that mold is broken, and this is why education should be free. Why are you hoarding knowledge for financial gain? It's insanity. Would you not want your society the smartest that they can be? What are we talking about? Why is this even a conversation? I want my kids to be as smart as possible. That's like me being, yo, you got to go do your work before you can read this book. What? You're a villain.
Nah, I wanted you out in the yard doing that work, not getting smart or expanding yourself in other ways. So I can make that, so I can get paid off you working in the yard.
100%.
I don't need you thinking about how you can be an owner.
100%. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist in the way I think that there's 17 evil white men in a round table saying this is how we're going to screw society, right? I don't think that. I think that it's just a perpetual system that over time has rewarded capital over anything else.
You know what I think is so great about not learning these things outside of those kind of programs is that there's so much, I could just tell, even as you were explaining it, there's so much reflection that goes on when you go through it yourself. And I think that having that creativity in it as well as without going through lesson by lesson by lesson is, I liked it better.
No, I definitely think it's important, but there are some fields where you need mentorship, no question. And so there's a lot, like I'll be lying if I said I went through this journey by myself. Like my sister has a master's in Africana studies, right? And so when I got to the point in history and Black history in America, I could read all the books I want to, but giving it a perspective for somebody who studied this formally helped tremendously, right? And granted, we came to a lot of the same conclusions beforehand, but when I talked to her, I got a little deeper understanding. And so it's not to begrudge people that have given their life to this and teach this for a living. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is the fact that you hoard information for profit is the issue, right? And so I don't think and this may be skewed as arrogant, but it's just my observation from my life's experiences is that I'm not normal. I'm not a regular human being in where I just exist. A lot of people just, and I'm not saying that's a bad or a good thing. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I've always had a unique talent and ability to seek information, to seek accurate information, and to siphon a lot of pertinent info that has been um, validated, right? And so like I'm able to see through that. And the reason why is because I think my background in philosophy, I studied philosophy in college, and critical thinking is a huge aspect of that. And so I critically think about everything. And so I'm okay with saying, no, I was wrong. I messed that up. Yeah, no, I was wrong about that. I misspoke. No, I don't, there's no ego involved in my pursuit. And that's the biggest thing, is that you attach your self-worth or dignity or pride or whatever the case may be, you attach that to your uh, uh, identity. And that's the dangerous part. And for whatever reason, I've been able to avoid those landmines. And now it's like I argue from a place of uh, it's almost altru. Well, it's almost altruism, where it's like I don't really have a stake in it. Like I argue in a place like think about it. Me voting for Trump would be beneficial for me, right? Me being a Republican would be so beneficial to me fiscally, 1,000%. But I understand as a whole how it's detrimental to a society. Like I get that. Why would I do that other than like voting against my own self-interest in order to help people? Because I've been on both sides, right? I have a very unique perspective in America, from being Black, wealthy, athletic, dabbling in academics. I have a very unique perspective. And so it's important that I express that, but also it's important that I continue this journey, because who knows, I might look back at this podcast in 10 years, like I said earlier, and be like, what the hell were you talking about, bro? Oh my God, that's bullshit.
When you told me years ago you're going to be an astrophysicist, I said, what the hell are you talking about?
I wanted, and I still want to be, but what I've found out, my brother, that's that old saying, you can't serve two masters. I'm in love with my art. Like I love it. It's something that I will not be able to live without. And so while I'm continually making music and putting things out and doing things, that I can only give so much time. To be an astrophysicist, you have to put that time into being an astrophysicist. You have to go learn the mathematics. You have to go learn the physics. You have to learn all of that stuff on a level that I can explain to you why Einstein's equations are accurate. I can't explain to you mathematically why that's the case. And in order to understand math, because E equal MC squared is a long equation, you have to unpack it, right? Those symbols mean something else. And so I understand it, but I don't understand it on the level that I could explain to a mathematician. And that's the difference, is until I have the time to do that and love it like I do something else, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I would be doing myself a disservice, and I would be doing physics a disservice, because I believe that is a field that I know that's a field that has changed our lives dramatically. The reason why we're even talking is because our study into physics.
Yeah, I always just thought it was odd for, as somebody studying philosophy, but then seemed so interested in society and connecting with people, to go into astrophysicism.
Well, I think astrophysics. I think if you look at a lot, because my stepfather's a geneticist, PhD geneticist, right? And we've had a lot of talks. He frowned on philosophy when I was in college, and he was like, "Oh, it's just like pseudoscience almost."
You go work at Starbucks when you're done.
Right. I mean, it was a joke amongst my peers. And one time we were playing. Who were we playing? We were playing somebody, dog. And before the game, they like interview like the star players, and they're like, what's your major? What do you want to do? And I told them my major is philosophy, and they're like, what do you want to do with it? And I was like, you can't do anything with a philosophy degree. I mean, I'm not going to open a philosophy shop. And then on camera the next day in the game, he said he wants to open a philosophy shop. And I'm like, bro, why would you say that, bro? But anyway, but when you study philosophy, what you realize is it was the substrate for science. It was the beginning of science, and that's not to discredit any African philosophers or anything else, but like written down knowledge that we're taught. I don't even care who did it, right? But written down knowledge that we're taught, right? I'm gonna mess his name up. Ibn al-Hamin or something like that. He's the one that was responsible for the scientific method. He was an Arab, and he did a lot for science.
Hey Sportlighters, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and get notified, because that's right, we have another episode of Arian Foster next week. If you're interested in further information and want to engage in in-depth conversations about these and other issues in sport, please visit us at patreon.com/Sportlight. To stay up to date on all things Sportlight, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sportlight Media and Twitter at SportlightCom, no dot. Or feel free to email us at team@sportlight.com, and we will be happy to welcome you to the Sportlight community.